are?
Hi.
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 How are you? Thank you, first of all, for doing this. I said that I had watched you sitting in my home the other night, and I wanted to invite you on because I thought you spoke so movingly about your own experience in Israel last Saturday, about making the decision to come back to the United States, about leaving your daughter behind. So let me just thank you for coming on here. I love the mission of but first of all, how are you doing?
Well, first thing, you can hear me. I'm good. I did everything right technologically. Well, thank you for having me, and thank you for inviting me. And at this exact moment, I'm okay because I'm here with you and I'm focused on something. But I will say that since Saturday morning, it's been awful. And I'll just back up because I think that, yes, I was there. And, you know, at 6:30 in the morning, I was awoken by a siren. And I was in a hotel and we all rushed to the bomb shelter, which is stairwells in hotels. Mm-hmm. And, you know, the world is there. So in Israel, in Tel Aviv, and they are used to these sirens. And you can hear in the background the sound of the bombs being exploded in midair. So it is scary. Yeah. But there's a point where you're like, okay, this is something that is part of living in Israel. And it was a beautiful day, and it was a holiday, Simchat Torah, Saturday morning. And by the time we went back to our rooms and came back for the second one, I started to hear that something was happening in the south of Israel. And I have relatives that live on a kibbutz that is called Kfar Aza, which is literally along the border with Gaza. And I reached out to my sister-in-law, and she didn't answer. Then I called my other sister-in-law, and she told me, and this was like very early in the morning already. And this is the hard part, and I apologize. I'm just going to be very honest. So people who are listening, it's really harsh. But the first thing she said is that my niece was dead, and her husband was killed. And they didn't have any other details except for the 6 and 10-year-old were locked in a closet, and they didn't know what happened. So the husband was outside. It was a beautiful day. And if people don't know what a kibbutz is, it's a beautiful place where people live outdoors. They live in small homes, but they share land and they share so much. But this kibbutz happened to be just a beautiful place. And you could see Gaza. You could see it across maybe like a half a mile distance. And I can just say that, like, throughout the years, there was never an issue between the people of this kibbutz and the people of the south and the people of Gaza. Mm. But what happened was, so my nephew went outside and he was with a little kid, about 3 years old, and the bombs started coming over, so he heard them. And literally before he could get back in the house, he was ambushed and he was massacred by Hamas terrorists. They had already infiltrated the kibbutz. I only learned today, because it's been hard to get this we learned on Saturday. But what we learned also, and we were not sure, is that when he fell over the child. In the meantime, his wife, my niece, was inside with a 6 and a 10-year-old, and she put them in a closet, locked them in the closet. She called her father, who was an older man who also lived on the kibbutz, and told him to lock himself up. In the meantime, they got into the house and they murdered her. So two little kids, 6 and 10-year-old, were left in a closet, and they were there until nightfall because the kibbutz could not even be secured. Nobody could get to them. In the meantime, the child that was outside, we don't know where she is.
So I just want to pause a moment.
I know it's a lot. I'm sorry, but it's a lot.
I want to pause to give you a moment because you're right, it's a lot. And I know that I'm asking you to be kind of a reporter in a way. You're reporting from the front lines of your family. And so I want to honor what we're actually hearing, that this is a family. And obviously, nobody wants to pick up the phone or get a phone call that tells you that someone in your family has been killed, because that's a shock and a trauma that stays in your body. I can attest to that for decades to come. So I just want to honor this moment for you, for your family. I know that you continued to get information about the two little children who were locked in the closet. They're all right, or they're with some other members of your family. Not they're all right. That's the wrong word.
No.
But
Yeah. So they were able to get these kids by evening. And what I also learned, which is so interesting, is that my niece, for some reason, I don't know, because we don't live in that world, but she had planned for this emergency, never hoping it would happen.
wow.
So however she had created this closet, it was in preparation for a God forbid moment, which is shocking, and yet it happened. And so I think that was part of why these kids were so safe. She also put them in with a cell phone. There was a 10-year-old. What I understand, and my daughter saw the kids today, they visited them with relatives. And, you know, the kids were outside playing, and thank God they were playing and playing soccer, and they have a beautiful family. And the grandmother arrived back because she had been abroad with a group from the kibbutz. So she was there, the grandfather was there, and the husband's family and our family. So when you ask how the kids are, and we know what the trauma and what the residuals will continue to be for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
But at this point, at least they are with family, and they are being embraced, and they have therapy, and they have sports. And so there's a little bit of comfort in knowing that that's where what they have right now, and they're with good family in a safe place.
When I was listening to your interview the other night, you said that you had to make this wrenching decision to get out. You had just arrived in Israel on a Friday night, and there was an opportunity for you to leave in the midst of all of this. And your daughter, who had moved to Israel, wanted to stay. So you had to make this wrenching decision to go or to stay, right? And you chose to go. Your daughter told you that that was okay, but that she wanted to stay behind. How is your daughter today? How are you leaving a child behind like that? You have 5 kids, I read. You have 5 kids.
Yes, I have 5. This is my daughter, and she's in her early 30s. And she decided long ago, we lived in Israel off and on throughout the years. And she decided that she was going to stay. She wanted to make Aliyah, which was she wanted to become a citizen. She just celebrated 10 years. She served in the IDF.
Wow.
She has a partner. She has a home. She has a life. And it was wrenching because on Saturday, we didn't see each other Friday night. She was away for the weekend with family for the holiday. We were going to meet for breakfast Saturday, and we were all stuck. We couldn't move. So I didn't see her. And what happened was that pretty much, including herself and all my relatives and everybody, said, get out. You know, at a certain point, unless you're there to serve a purpose, you're just an extra person that needs to be taken care of.
Right.
So, and it was very hard to get out. There weren't a lot of planes that were flying in and out. So I basically got out on Sunday. I took a very long flight to come back. I actually went through the Emirates because there was no flight direct that I could get on. And fast forward, you know, it was the hardest thing because I actually saw her for 1 hour. I got to stop at her apartment and just hold her for 1 hour. And we cried and we laughed. You know, we just did what we could do to celebrate that moment. And I said, I'll take you with me. And she said, I'm staying. And I appreciate that. That's, you know, that she has a role there. And what I will tell you is that it's been very hard. She had friends that came and stayed with her because the husband was called into. There's a reason why she stayed. She had friends whose husband got called into the army. This woman came with her kids. They gave them support. A lot of men are being called in.
Yeah.
That they're being sent to the border. Today she went and she spent time with our family, and she got to see the kids. And what she wrote, and this is why she's there, because she is another person who's telling this story. And what she wrote, and it was so beautiful, is that she sat with this family, and the other sister, my other niece, lives on this kibbutz with her husband, 3 children. They ran into the bomb shelter. Everyone on their street, in this little street on a kibbutz, was massacred. Theirs home was the only one that survived. And they think it's because of where the bomb shelter was that it wasn't easy, because they heard the terrorists come through.
Yeah.
Having said
Let me
that,
ask you, let me ask you a question, because you know this is such a deeply personal, familial thing for you, right? And I hear so many friends are saying, like, I don't want to see it anymore. I want to turn away. I don't want to hear about it anymore. How do you balance yourself with being here, knowing what's going on, not turning away or turning in? How should we all balance that?
I believe that people should watch news, a little bit of news. I think everybody needs a little bit. But I think the problem that becomes where people sit in front of the television all day long. And that, I think, is a danger. I read more than I watch in general, but I think you cannot turn away from this, because this could be, and I don't mean to be dramatic, this could be your neighborhood in America. This could be your neighborhood anywhere in the world, because hate does not have borders. And I feel like we can't become numb to this. And why I've spoken out and why I did the CNN piece is because I know you talk about love and you talk about humanity and you talk about the heart. And that's what my podcast, which you refer to, is about. Yeah. And I think that it's beyond just politics. It's like our heart and our humanity needs to understand what's going on. And if we close it off, then not only do we walk around almost allowing for what they have tried to do to us, which is to disengage us and to turn us off or to scare us. So I think that there is a balance, and everyone has their own balance. You know, I look at you right now and I see that picture behind you, and I'm assuming it's your parents.
Yeah.
And, you know, I saw in the picture today this one house in Kfar Aza, in this same kibbutz, where there was the family pictures and it was demolished on the floor. You can't turn away from that. And you cannot turn away from like this kind of suffering, but you do have to take it in dosage. And why I do this is because I want to bring a human face to it, because the news is important, but it's harsh. Yeah. And you lose that heart.
I love that, because what you said when I read the description of your podcast, you said it's about getting to know who these people are that we see in the news, the politicians, who they are in their hearts. Yeah. And what do you think that we are missing in this story that we're not focusing on, that we should perhaps be focusing on?
Well, I think there is a lot of focus on loss, and I think there's a lot of focus on missing people. I think that where people can focus is, and this is not to take away from trying to help the people in the south of Israel, but do good in our own hearts. And I know that might sound cliche, but like, we all have a role to play. And that's why I started the podcast. But that's why I'm here today on behalf of a family. We can send our prayers, we can do all that, but it's what we do with our own hearts. And you, I know, prescribe to this, which is if you spread joy, if you feel joy, the ripples have become waves. Yeah. And so I don't want to sound cliche, but when you ask what can we do, we can acknowledge that it happened and we cannot fix it, but we can't let hate enter our hearts. And we need to keep pushing forward to try to bring joy and love and all the correct things and honor humanity, because this was inhumane what they did.
I love what Liz just said, right? Inhumane, and at the same time, so calling out what is inhumane, calling out loss, but also, and also looking for the good in humanity, looking for how you can express love wherever you are, because that is what in the end trumps evil, trumps hate, right? Is people expressing and not turning away totally. I also understand when people are like, it's too much, I can't handle it, I don't want to see it. And I think, as Liz is saying, you know, like, find your medium, find what works for you, but don't turn away totally. I advocate that even here at home when people say, I've given up on the news. I'm like, don't give up, because that's when really bad stuff happens, when we
Exactly.
give up, right? And what you said, you talked to your daughter today, and she said, how was she? What does she say life is like there now? We're almost a week out.
You know, I don't say life is normal, but the rest of the country, they're running, they're sirens. But what I understand is, like, where she went, it was an hour's drive, so it was safe to drive. But really, listen, everybody knows somebody that was murdered at that dance party. Everybody knows somebody that is in Gaza or someplace as a kidnapped person. You have that weight on you. And many people have already started going to funerals and shivas for those who've lost their lives, even if they haven't recovered the bodies. I mean, you try to live, you go to the market because you still need to buy food. But there is so much, and this is the beautiful thing about people in Israel, that no matter the political differences, no matter all that, everybody has come together.
Right.
The biggest organization that was against, and this is not about politics, this is just to give you an example. The biggest organization that was doing the protests for the judicial overhaul,
Right.
the minute this happened, they stopped. They became a humanitarian and a civil aid group, and they had the best infrastructure, so it made sense. They put aside their political issues, they came together, and they are shipping not only humanitarian aid to the folks in the South and throughout the country that are being affected, but they're making sure that these kids that get there have ceramic vests, helmets, belts, shoes. This was not planned that you would need to bring, you know, hundreds of thousands of troops to a border to protect a country. So my point is, that's what, when you say how are things, it is terrible, it is depressing, but there is a beauty of people coming together and knowing that, you know, we say in Hebrew, Am Yisrael Chai, Israel lives, the nation of Israel lives. And I don't know another nation that comes together like this.
Yeah, Liz, what, you know, so many people that I've talked to, Jewish friends that I've talked to are really beside themselves, feeling, you know, they're a world away. They may know somebody in Israel. And they're terrified to go out. They're terrified to go to synagogue. They feel, many saying for the first time, like, I feel like completely unsafe to be Jewish. Do you feel like that? You live in Los Angeles, right?
I live between LA and New York, and I'm in New York today. Listen, when there is, and I understand it, but yes, you know, in the last few days, they said, the Hamas folks, or, you know, through the network, said tomorrow is a jihad day to kill Jews in America and all over the world. When you hear that and you see what they did, it is petrifying. And the same moment, I don't see how we stay home. We have to, again, it goes to the balance. We can't let them scare us into not going out. We cannot let them, yes, synagogues, schools, everyone needs to be extra careful. And I know through my work with schools that there's extra security, there's extra. We need to have caution, but we cannot let them put us in a place where we don't live. And again, it's very scary, but we need to keep moving forward. So I empathize and I so understand it, but I personally am going to go outside tomorrow. I personally
ask you, how are you going to spend tomorrow?
I am going to spend tomorrow probably getting fresh air, walking around in between my work that I do inside, and I'm going to go out. And I'm going to be careful, but listen, we need to keep going. And I think that everybody needs to do what is right for them. And if they choose tomorrow to stay in, I honor that. But I also feel like it's another day, and it should not be that when somebody says don't go out, we don't go out. I hope.
Liz, I want to thank you so much for coming on to talk. I want to tell everybody Liz's podcast, her Instagram account is called the Capital Coffee Connection Podcast. And as I said, I'm going to read it again because it's a very similar mission to what we do here. It's not about politics. It's about people and getting to know who they are, the politicians, activists, whatever, who they are in their hearts. Because if we start from that place, if we get to know who people are in their hearts, regardless of their ethnicity, their heritage, or whatever, the color of their skin, if we start with hearts, right, then we can find common ground. We can have different kinds of conversations
Absolutely.
and move ourselves forward. Have you found that? What is the kind of heartfelt advice you can leave us with here, Liz?
So what I have learned through these podcasts, and I've learned so much, but I think through telling stories, we can all become closer. If you think about people, whatever you do biologically or what we want in life, people are really the same in so many ways.
Yeah.
It's just amazing. No matter where we are, no matter what our religion or ethnicity, we are so the same, but we have let what is a little bit different, we've let people tear us apart on those issues. Yeah. So through this podcast, whether it's been an immigrant family from Eritrea, South America, Central America, Europe, or whether it's a family that had nothing or their parents were union people or teachers, what I see is this commonality of these folks. And we try to be nonpartisan. I want Republicans, I want Democrats, I want people who are willing to be vulnerable. And what I have learned is everyone has beautiful stories.
Yeah.
And people that have listened have heard these stories. And when they hear these stories, it brings down walls and it actually makes us come closer. And I really, truly believe it. And I have seen it, and the people that have been watching it, and we're growing, and people, it's a podcast. It takes time. Everything takes time.
Yeah.
But what I've seen is it's a process. But the minute you tell somebody what you and I are talking about bringing heart, humanity, and love into the picture, that the pendulum in our country and the world has swung so far over, let's bring it back. And that's where I go back to, we all have a role in this, and everybody can do something. And this podcast is sort of like a way to center ourselves. And if we can love our political leaders, then perhaps we can put more trust into our political world. Right now, we do have people that are distrustful, or like you've said, I don't want to get involved.
Right.
But what I've learned is these people are really doing everything they can from their heart and from their basic humanity. And we have so much more in common, and we need to use that to celebrate and to find ways to come together. So I hope that helps.
That does. That's beautiful, Liz. And we'll recommend it in the Sunday paper. We're going to recommend that people go and listen to it. I love the mission. I love the purpose. And I love that you're trying to break down walls. And that's what we need. And we need people who say, I get it. I'm in pain, but I'm going to keep going on. Because I've yet to meet a person who doesn't have some kind of pain, who hasn't had some kind of grief, and sharing it or talking about it and moving yourself forward is how we get through it. So I want to thank you.
And can I just say one more thing, which is you're somebody people know. You have a public profile, right, and you do your beautiful work. I am not that person. I have been pushed into this. I have chosen to try this. And I only bring it up because people that will be watching now or down the line, we all can do it. I'm not born into a family that like yours. I'm not I'm not a journalist.
It doesn't matter.
We all can play a role. And that's why I bring it up, just to say, thank you for bringing me here. Thank you for reaching out to me, because I am scared by doing what I do. But I know there's a power in speaking out. And so I want to thank you for inviting me and recognizing that I had a story and people that need their stories to be told in Israel and in America.
Thank you, Liz. Thank you for saying that. I'm proud of you. I'm sorry for what you've gone through. And I'm sorry for what you've gone through. And I believe that you have already made a difference. As I watched you, I ran to get a pen, write down your name. I'm like, I'm going to find that woman in the morning.
Thank you.
So you're already making a difference, and stay at it. Stay the course. Thank you. And thank you to all of you for joining us and listening to her. Once again, the Capital Coffee Connection podcast. We'll recommend that in the Sunday paper. And what she said is true. We all have a role. Find your purpose, your mission. You are needed. You are needed.